So right now, there's a legal battle going on over the estate of the bride who was killed on her wedding night, and you're going to be shocked to find out who it's between. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. That's Roscoe. That's the sofa. I'm Paul. We are going to be talking about a tragic case that actually is not too far away from me here in the Carolinas. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, specifically about the legal battle that is now ensuing over the victim's estate. Now, the way that this video will work is I've made some notes here to talk about some of the highlights of it, and I'll just be going over those. And so that's kind of it for today. Now, before we jump in, if you do want to follow me on the Instagram, go on, jump on it. It's in the little description box below. A little screen name or whatever you call those things is on the screen here. We do like to hang out over there, and by we, I mean Roscoe and I. Anyways, that's it. Let's go ahead and get into the update. So today we're going to be talking about Samantha Miller. Now, April 28th, 2023, this should have been a magical, blissful day where she joined hands with Arik Hutchinson and on the sandy beaches of Folly Beach, but it didn't end up being that way at all. That day would end absolutely tragically when Arik and Samantha and some other family members were on a golf cart. They were leaving the wedding reception, and a Toyota Camry going like 65 miles per hour plus, and this was in a road that no one should have been even thinking about going that fast, plowed into the golf cart. Okay, Samantha still had her wedding dress on, okay? And this would ultimately take her life. She would be dead on the scene when paramedics arrived. Now, the driver would end up being Jamie Komorowski. So Komorowski is charged with 3 counts of DUI causing serious bodily injury or death and 1 count of reckless homicide. A blood toxicology report showed her blood alcohol level was 0.261 on the night of the crash. That's more than 3 times the legal limit in South Carolina. Now, only a couple of weeks after this tragedy, drama started taking place with the mother of the bride, Lisa Miller. Basically, she started making threats that she was going to challenge the validity of the marriage. So this argument, it's built around her being the sole beneficiary to the estate and not Mr. Hutchinson. As Samantha, when she died, she did not have a will. Now, basically what the mother is trying to say is that we're not going like based on wedding license, anything like that. We're going based on the fact that the newlyweds did not spend the night together. But here's one of the things. In addition to getting married and like they were married, you can't deny that, they had lived together for like 4 years prior to this marriage. So really this argument that she's trying to form, it ain't working. So there have been several settlements against establishments in the wrong death suits, and it's already been shown that the defendant visited several businesses on that day of the incident. Essentially what she was doing was basically bar hopping and day drinking, okay? And so several of these places, like I said, they've already made payouts. So basically Lisa Miller's attorneys met with Mr. Hutchinson's, and they were like, look, let's go co-counsel on these wrongful death suits. Now, Mr. Hutchinson even went as far as like to be like, look, I will split all the money that we get. I love you. You know, basically like your family in my eyes, you know, I'll split the money with you, but that was declined. Now, very soon after the incident, Samantha's mother, Lisa, you know, she was doing like media speeches and stuff like that, press conferences. And this is where this kind of first started, at least to the public's eyes, because she was essentially saying, look, I want you to call her by her maiden name, her name, you know, Miller, not Hutchinson. And so that was the first like, you know, because again, you have to keep in mind that there's many grieving parties here, right? And so at the very start of it, it was like, I mean, this is the mother, the family, you know, they just got married, you know, maybe they're going through it or whatever, you know, but nonetheless, it kind of made a lot of people feel a lot of different ways. But here's the thing, when it comes to her last name, it was shown that Samantha was like making comments like coworkers like, I'm gonna be Miss Hutchinson when you see me. You know, she was talking about this name change that was gonna be coming. So it's not like Samantha was gonna say, I'm just keeping my own last name. Like, she was proud and excited to take on the Hutchinson name. So there's all that going on in the background. So fast forward to where we're at today, where these attorneys and, you know, Lisa and Mr. Hutchinson, they've all gone like toe to toe over this at this point, because no agreements can be made as to how this is going to be handled. So it's now turned into a nasty legal battle, and there's a lot of money at stake. There have been a couple of pre-suit mediations, but those have been unsuccessful. Twice now, Lisa has filed like a very simple 2-line motion to intervene with this process, but Mr. Hutchinson's attorneys are obviously, you know, coming back at that as well. And basically his attorneys are like, look, she doesn't have a leg to stand on with this. You know, like, I mean, he is the sole benefactor to the estate. They were married, that's how it is. And he's even offered to split all of that with you, but you're not budging on that that. So, like, what's going to happen here? Lisa Miller's petition for this has even gone as far as to say, this is the potential of fraud, and that's why we're coming to step in. And, this is the whole, we're trying to invalidate this marriage thing. And Lisa's even saying, my daughter would have wanted me to get some of this inheritance money. And I have no doubt about that, right? But from my viewpoint on it, and again, as we get into some of my personal opinions on this, just remember they're just my opinions, right? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not that fancy credentialed stuff. I'm just someone on the sofa following true crime with my own thoughts and opinions on them. I'm eager to hear yours. Again, I would have no doubt that Samantha would probably want everyone to benefit as much as they could from a tragedy like this, right? Now, I want to cite one article here, an interview that the mother did. This was the Post and Courier. Just go over a couple little things here. So she says, Mr. Hutchins and I agreed several times that Sam would want us to do everything together, given we're the two most important people in her life, she told the Post and Courier. I never wanted to challenge the validity of the marriage. I never wanted to dishonor Sam, but I feel like Mr. Hutchinson is dishonoring my daughter and going against her wishes. She said of the son-in-law she previously gushed over as the loving male version of her daughter. Now, Lisa's attorneys go on to say in the same article, and I'll quote this as well, says, the main reason to intervene is to protect the estate of Samantha Miller and all of its rightful heirs. There's no reason to rush the process and cloak it in secrecy, he claimed. This was a money grab from minute one. Now, Hutchinson lawyers called Miller's motion to intervene morally questionable and illegally baseless while denying her claim that she was being cut out. And then it goes on to continue to say, how he was more than generous with Lisa Miller, offering her half of the money. And she has repaid him by threatening to bring frivolous challenge to the validity of his marriage to Sam. One would hope that Miss Miller would have too much respect for her own daughter to do that. And then it goes into saying, he's offered his mother-in-law half of any of the recovery, but again, that's been denied. So here's the thing. And it goes on to say, and continuing, that he did this not because there's a legal claim that she has, but because, basically he's a nice guy. This is a very touchy scenario, because if you sit here and look at it, it's like, okay, so they were together years before this, right? And then they made it official then. I'm not behind closed doors. I don't know what happened in those moments of that, if he was trying to be like, well, she's not getting anything all of a sudden, or if he immediately was like, well, look, I'm gonna break you off some, basically, or whatever. I don't know how all that played out. Obviously, I've just seen what's come out in the papers and mainstream media, that type thing. So the whole thing of him having to basically be like, look, I'm gonna give you some of the money, not because you have a right to it, but look, I'll hook you up, basically. And then to cut that out, it's just, okay. That to me is where it just gets even for the two of them to split it in half seems more than fair to me. Because again, like I said, I'm sure Samantha would want everyone that she loved and cared for to, get something. You know what I'm saying? I can't imagine that she wouldn't. And so for him to offer that, I think is more than being generous. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know if he did anything, nasty behind the scenes and whatnot. But this just goes into showing the protections of that legal binding marriage, which again, they had literally just got married. But you see this oftentimes in these scenarios. So they weren't together, cohabitating long enough to be, what is that called when you're together for 10 years? And it's marriage by whatever, that I can't think of the name right now. And I don't even know what the specific laws were in their home state where they were at for that. But, there's just legal protections that go with it. So I'm kind of okay, well, come on. What, you want to cut him out and put him, out in the cold? You know what I'm saying? Nobody ever anticipates having to deal with something like this, right? It's she died on the night of her wedding in her wedding dress, for God's sakes, because some little spoiled brat was out drinking and driving, who has never shown any remorse over this whatsoever. That's going to be a whole other video update on that, because it just continues to get worse. And I'm talking about the girl who killed Samantha, who is incarcerated, who is charged, and who has this delusion that she's going to get out and go home and be on her merry way to the next bar. I don't know. So I'll be curious to see how this plays out if it goes all the way to trial, because again, it's not a good look. And unless they come up with something behind the scenes that shows he was being really nasty towards the mother or something, right now it's making the mom look really bad. What I would have done at this point is when he offered half, I would have been like, okay, cool, thank you. If I was going to take it to that level, right? Maybe she needs the money. I don't know, right? Maybe this could be life-changing money for her, because it does sound like it's a lot of money at stake. You got to remember, there's several establishments that this chick was going to, binge drinking all day, probably should not have been served at some of them, because she was trashed, right? And it sounds like one of them maybe was even her work or something. It's not good what she did and the places that enabled it. So yeah, they're gonna pay, okay? Completely they're gonna pay. And it's a pretty pretty chunk of change. So I have no doubt that could probably be life changing. I don't know how her parents had it. Her mom had it. I don't know if she was already wealthy or if this is like, I really, really need the money, you know, and in that kind of case, I would hope that he would have been like, look, I'm going to hook you up too, without being forced. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that would have been the right thing to do. And all that will come out if it goes to court, you know, and if it comes to court where it's like, look, he was trying to be this way and that way and the mom's, you know, destitute or whatever. Okay, right. It's like, people split it in half and go on your way. Because obviously now the sad thing is, in this state, she is gone. That's the worst thing. Samantha, her life is over with. On what should have been her most blissful day, God knows what her last thoughts were. God bless her. I mean, it really just, it gives me goosebumps. I cannot imagine that. And then him, he's lost his wife, his bride, his person, you know, and now this is an ugly battle that has destroyed, if there was any kind of connection family-wise between them, that's over. So your whole life in an instant is absolutely uprooted and destroyed. And will never be the same. So, and at the end of the day, none of the money will ever bring any of that back, and it won't bring Samantha back. So if the money can be done to help facilitate, say they got a lot of bills, you know, obviously the bills associated with this, but like say, you never know, like maybe they can pay their mortgage off or whatever. Okay, it's something, right? And I'm sure Samantha would have wanted something to help each of them. But again, I don't know the people, so we'll see. Anyways, it's very tragic all around. It's very tragic. My heart goes out to everybody involved. I just think it's a terrible, terrible way to leave this earth and on that day. So anyways, what do you think? Do you think that the mother is entitled to the money? What do you also think about the very beginning? I forgot to mention this. Well, I did, but I want to kind of go into it a little bit more. So when the mother was talking to the media, she's like, I want you to call her by her, you know, her maiden name, if you will. Yeah, I want you to call her Miller, not Hutchinson. To me, that was the first line in the sand. But like I said earlier, as the general public like me, I didn't know. I was like, well, maybe she's just grieving a certain way and that's her baby girl and I want to hear her last name, you know, that type of thing. But then knowing all this behind the scenes, I'm like, oh, was this like a checkers move kind of a thing to start in on that? Like a right off the bat, we were starting with, you ain't married. You know, I'm getting whatever's coming. So I don't know. What do you think about that? What do you think about the whole thing? Anyways, I want to know. I do appreciate you if you're still watching. Thank you very much. Roscoe says thank you as well. Drop some little sofas off there in the little, comment section for me. He'll skedaddle on down there and hang out on them at some point. And until we do go down there to hang out on the sofas and talk to whoever's hanging out down there, we'll see y'all soon.